How's it going, everybody? It's Doran here from Sunrise Gaming, coming back at you with another video for our character analysis series. We are breaking down Winston today, everybody's favorite monkey slash scientist. He's a pretty cool guy. He helped Tracer. He's the science lead for Overwatch. We love the big monkey. Rest in peace, Harambe. Today I am joined by Lax. Lax is our resident Winston main, especially for this season, in Season 4. He has played quite a lot of Winston and is a big fan of the guy. So how are we doing today, Lax?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you?
Doing good. Ready to talk about some Winston?
Oh yeah, I love me some Winston play.
Alright. First and foremost, in the Sunrise tradition, what is your favorite skin?
I like the legendary one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's orange. I really like that one because my favorite color is orange. But I think the best might be Safari, just because it looks funny and it's cool.
No, it is really cool. We do enjoy. Winston has some very unique skins, so they're always fun to see them around, especially when you're getting jumped on by the big guy. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
let's go ahead and break down his skills. He uses a Tesla cannon as his primary weapon, and the left click is pretty interesting because it's not necessarily aimed, so to speak, but more like positioned. Can you explain it?
Yeah, so it'll create a sort of cone in front of you that has a pretty decent size and width. And it will lock on to any enemy that's inside that cone. And I can't remember exactly. It's like 40 damage a second or something like that, somewhere around there. And what's nice about it is if you have like an annoying Genji or Tracer that's trying to dive you, it locks on. So long as you're holding down the left click, it locks on and stays on. So you can continuously do damage, forcing them to either fight you 1v1, which, you know, if you play it right, you can win most times, or force them to bail out. So it's really good for locking onto somebody. But you can lock. It goes through a Reinhardt shield. I've noticed. That's interesting. It goes through the Diva Matrix, which is great, and it oh, there was something else. Oh, the Genji can't deflect it, so it's really good for kind of locking somebody down. You're not going to be outputting insane amount of damage, but it's really good for that lockdown kind of ability.
Right, for sure. He's definitely an interesting kind of tank. Let's talk about his left shift, the jump. It's huge. Let's discuss how important it is.
I would say that that's one of the best movement abilities in the game, just because it lets you go for distance and height, and that can be useful in many different kinds of scenarios. There's times in the middle of the game where I just jump straight up just so I can get a look over what we're fighting, especially on like a King of the Hill type map when I got to see what angle that they're coming in from. In order to create space, you can jump up, and then when you land back down, it boosts people a little bit. So that allows you to create space to get to the open spot, as well as if like a Widow's far away sniping everybody and she's starting to, you know, go off, then you can use that ability to just jump on her immediately. So that ability is also good for a retreat. You know, if you're getting hella, you know, burnt up in there, then you can jump out and have somebody heal you so you don't feed their ults. So I'd say it's one of the best movement abilities in the game, and it's extremely useful because it's so versatile. It can be used offensively, defensively. You can gain information from it. You can dive somebody. It's a good initiation tool. So if you're running a dive comp, which we highly recommend over here at Sunrise Gaming, then it can be an initiation tool. Instead of, you know, slowly moving a death ball towards the choke and like, hey, let's fight, you can jump in on the Winston jumps in, and that's everybody's cue to go in and start the fight.
Right. So Winston is an initiator.
Yes, definitely. He's
Right.
an initiation tank. He can be used in that role.
Gotcha. All right. So let's talk about his E ability. His E ability produces a dome shield, like similar to Reinhardt's, in a sphere around wherever it lands. He doesn't throw it; he drops it in front of him. But you can drop it from anywhere, correct?
Yeah.
If you're midair, you can drop it too.
Yeah. It'll fall straight down. It doesn't carry any momentum. It just goes straight down.
Okay. What about this ability? What do you think? Why does Winston need it?
It's key for Winston, and the reason it's key for him is because, like I just mentioned, his initiation with his left shift. If he just jumps in, and let's say the goal with Winston is to jump in roughly. You don't want to jump in right in front of their main tanks. You want to get behind their tanks and create space. So if he were to jump in without a barrier, he would get wrecked in 5 seconds flat. As well as his team is not going to have anywhere to kind of fight. because they're going to have no protection, because that's what a tank's supposed to do. A tank's supposed to protect their team. So by having that barrier, placing it right as you land, place it, and if you did your initiation correctly, you hopefully have split somebody off, and that barrier allows you to be protected, and to give you like at least a second to find what needs to be focused down and lock on to that. What it also does is it allows your team to say, hey, this is the point at which I want to fight. I want to take this fight. Genji, dash through here. You'll be protected. Tracer, pop in and out of here. You'll be protected. Lucio, speed boost people around. When you're in a dive tank setup, the barrier is so key because it gives you that one point for your team to fight around. Because the dive mentality is not we're gonna win a bunch of duels and hope for the best. The dive mentality is we're going to fight at one point and we're going to focus down a target, one target at a time. So that barrier allows people to say, okay, this is the area in which we want to fight, or this is the area in which we want to defend, whatever. The barrier is really good. My only grief is with Orissa's barrier and with Reinhardt's barrier, you get the health pool of it. I'd like that information as Winston, though I guess it doesn't really matter because it's not a permanent barrier. I go back and forth on that, but that's just like a nitpicky thing, I guess.
Gotcha. So Winston's a very unique tank, so to speak. He's pretty much the only one of his kind. There's no real copy of, so to speak.
Yeah.
So let's talk about his ultimate and why it's one of the most different ultimates in the game.
It's different because pretty much every ultimate has some type of has an objective, right? Reinhardt's ultimate is to crowd control, get people down on the ground. Same thing with Zarya's. Anna and Orissa's are for damage boosting, clearing out a fight. Zen and Mercy's is for saving a fight, or I guess Mercy's after the fight, getting back in it. And then all the different DPS ones that are just for killing things quickly. You know, Juggernaut, Genji's, Soldiers, the big one, McCree's, all this kind of stuff. The thing about Winston's ult is it doesn't really have a clear purpose, and much like Winston's kit in general, it's very versatile. So you kind of have to, it takes a lot of practice, and there will be multiple times, if you ever play Winston, there'll be multiple times in which you pop your ult, and you're kind of stuck, you're smacking a few things around, and it's kind of like, you don't really know you don't feel like you're contributing much, and I've been in that scenario before, but the main thing is, you have to remember that tanks create space, that's what their job is to do, and Winston is probably the best at doing that. So with your ability, you can create space. You can isolate somebody. Isolating, even if you want to isolate an ulting soldier, which is, even though you have 1,000 health when really quickly, but even getting him away just so that your team can focus on the rest of the people is great. Knocking back a Mercy so that she can't fly in. Knocking back a Lucio so that he can't speed boost. Knocking back their Roadhog so he can't hook anybody. You know, excuse me. Creating this kind of space with Winston ult, I think, is the best, and really being able to focus somebody down and kind of pin them in a corner. You're not really, his ult isn't designed to just kill a bunch of people. If they're near the edge, you know, knock them back. Obviously, you want to knock them off and go for the environmental kills. But ultimately, it's just to create more space. And then defensively, sorry, you want to create space, but in a way that allows your team to re-engage and allows your team to sort of focus in on a specific target. So you want to keep people off your point so that your team can stay on the point, not lose it, as well as take the fight back. So his ult's really hard to use, but it's definitely effective.
Right, it's a very interesting ult. You know, you pop it, you basically are making yourself stronger. You get 1,000 health points, which is crazy. And you just swing around with your fists, but your jump cooldown is reduced greatly as well, right?
Yeah. It goes down to 2 seconds.
Gotcha. So let's talk about Winston in the meta. Where is he at? Is he in a good place right now?
I think he's in a good place. It all depends on... It depends on your team comp, really. And obviously, if you're diving, you have to take a Winston, just because, like I said, excuse me, he takes the fight in a different direction. So instead of just standing behind a Reinhardt shield and hoping for the best, hoping for a pick or whatever, what Winston does is says, no, we're gonna hit the team directly, and we're gonna hit them hard, and we're gonna focus down a target. So what we've seen now with all the different changes it's definitely gone flanker, not flanker heavy, but to where flankers are in a better position. So players like Tracer and Genji and I guess I wouldn't consider Sombra a flanker, but or
Reaper.
Sombra. I mean, Reaper and Pharah, like people that can create more space and get distance as well as close that gap really quickly. Winston just plays so well with him because they're doing really good. He's also doing really good. So, I think he's really good as a main tank for dive. I think you have to take him. He can play an off tank role with a Reinhardt, though. Generally, a D.Va's better, I think.
Gotcha. But he's definitely a main initiating dive tank.
Definitely.
Alright, then our final question, as always with these analysis, is do you recommend Winston for new players?
Okay, yes and no. Mainly because most tanks, you have to have game sense, and you have to understand the flow of the game. You have to understand, okay, we got this kill, but it's not a good trade, so we need to back off. Okay, their Mercy just res, so we don't need to dive her, let's dive their DPS. Or Mercy does have res, let's dive her quickly. So, while those are basics, they can be a little bit more complicated. So it really kind of just depends on the player. If the players are having a tough time adjusting to the flow of the game, and they're having a tough time adjusting to all the different things that are going to be thrown at them, because especially when you first, in your first team fight, you don't know what that team is running with, and you can't, go back and change real quick. So if you're running that Winston, you're running a dive comp, you have to be confident in your abilities as a Winston, to create the space and to isolate targets. So, I don't mind if new players want to learn it, but I would just say, try to make sure you understand the game first, and make sure you're a little bit confident, because you don't have to have the most mechanical skill with Winston. I mean, he locks on. You don't have to track or anything. I mean, there's very limited tracking. You have to has to be in your line of sight, but because there's less mechanical skill, that means your game sense needs to be elevated. So if you feel like you understand the game well enough and you're adjusting, then yeah, definitely pick it up as a new player. But if you play a game and you realize you're not getting that much of an impact, then you might want to switch and wait until your game sense gets up a little bit.
Gotcha. So he's kind of in the middle on that, so to speak.
Yeah, that's going to depend on each different player. Like, for me, Winston fit in pretty naturally because I played so many support characters that my mechanical skills were just meh, because a lot of them just are focusing on healing. So I was like, okay, let's play tanks. Oh, Winston looks nice. Oh, I can just lock on. That's sweet. Alright, I know that Mercy is about to res. Let's jump on her, So it's just, that fit well for me, but for other players I can see it not fitting well. So I think it depends player by player.
Gotcha. Well, that'll do it for Winston, everybody's favorite scientist and monkey. We have a couple more tanks to go before we move into defense. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.
Bye.
Spread the word. Goddamn right. That's just true.